Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live and doing more at 4. Weekday afternoons right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We are live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Coming off the big rally yesterday, stocks were mixed today with the latest reading on inflation in focus, showing it's cooling down some more. In fact, consumer prices in the month of April saw their lowest annual increase since February of 2021. Investors also taking in the easing trade tensions between the U.S. and China following the deal to that trade deal that came out yesterday for at least 90 days. The Dow coming in for a closing loss today of 270 points after popping nearly 1,200 yesterday. The S&P 500 at 42 and the NASDAQ gained 302 points as the Magnificent Seven continued to rally. For the year, we see the Dow is still down just about 1%. The NASDAQ down 1.5% so far this year. The stock market did get a major boost yesterday after Washington and Beijing got a deal to substantially lower tariffs for at least 90 days. And we did see the market rally today, at least part of the day, on the latest report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing a cool down in annual inflation ahead of President Trump's tariffs. Consumer prices in April recording their lowest annual rate of increase since 2021. Stocks have been on a tear for the past month, expecting some results here on tariffs, especially as it relates to the U.S. and China, which we did get some movement on yesterday. NVIDIA, meanwhile, has surged up nearly 6% today after the chip giant announced it would partner with Saudi Arabia on AI initiatives. President Trump was in Saudi Arabia today. We did see the Dow weighed lower by United Health Group shares, which sank about 18%. The company suspended its earnings guidance, and a United Health Group CEO said he would step down for personal reasons. The S&P 500, meanwhile, has climbed into positive territory for the year as the AI trade has taken off. NVIDIA surpassing a $3 trillion market cap for the first time since February as investors expect a boost from the chip deal announced with Saudi Arabia. President Trump planning to unveil the deal formally, which will give the Gulf nation more access to advanced chips from companies such as NVIDIA and Advanced Micro Devices. New proposal in Congress was helping spark gains for solar stocks today, but the plan from the House Ways and Means Committee being viewed as negative for the nuclear power industry and makers of electric vehicles. Tesla stock has been on a tear lately. We'll be taking a closer look at that. Taking a look at the cryptos, we've seen quite a rally in Ethereum. Can you believe it? Up 45% so far this month, on track for its best monthly performance since November when it was up about 48%. Bitcoin up about 11% month to date, while Solana has climbed about 21%. The April Consumer Price Index showed inflation pressures easing on an annual basis in the first month of President Trump's tariffs were in effect. The latest showed the consumer prices increased 2.3% over the prior year in April, a slowdown from March's 2.4%. President Trump today announcing a big announcement today at a business forum in Saudi Arabia that he was ordering an end to sanctions on Syria as that nation seeks a new start after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government. The president also expressing hope that Saudi Arabia would join the Abraham Accords and also condemned Iran, which he called upon to enter into a nuclear deal with the United States. U.S. home price growth slowing again in March as consumer anxiety over personal finances, job stability, and uncertainty related to the tariffs continued to weigh on the spring housing market, according to the latest report we got from Cotality, formerly known as CoreLogic. We'll get an update on that from their chief economist, Dr. SELMA HEPP, later this hour. And on commercial real estate, I'll be speaking live this hour with Jerry Sullivan, national managing editor of The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site. President Trump ordering the Veterans Administration to build 6,000 homes for veterans in West Los Angeles on the VA's 388-acre campus. We'll get an update on that as well as the Southern California firestorm recovery. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, geopolitics, politics, and the whole works now. I'm delighted to say we're joined by a giant on the business scene now, the one and only Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, author of numerous books, including the book Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. With inflation, of course, being one of the top stories today. Steve Forbes, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Good to be with you. Thank you. It's been quite a few days of news. No shortage of things to write about and comment about. It's amazing.
Most definitely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for taking the call. And so right off the bat here, inflation, that certainly was the big news right out of the gate this morning. Let's start with that. And, of course, you wrote about it in your book, Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. So it looks like it's cooling down some here. Give us your reaction to that latest news here this morning.
Well, those numbers are good. But I think also, though, we have to be aware that the Federal Reserve, you look at the gold price, has been taking a leave of absence, unauthorized leave of absence when it comes to defending the integrity of the dollar. And what that means is we could have inflation down the road, 12 to 18 months down the road, if the Fed continues on its current course. So also we have to hope that these trade deals, starting with China and Britain, are extended to other countries, and we don't have a big run-up in prices because of shortages, supply chains being disrupted, and a tariff is a tax like a sales tax. So the sooner they get these things out of the way, the better. It's good that the China thing, the mutually assured destruction, which is where we're headed for those 100+% tariffs from both countries, getting them down to a more reasonable level, I think is a key reason why the markets see hope for the future. So while the economy will be slowing down for the remainder of the year, markets look to the future, and hopefully we'll still get a good tax bill out of Washington, despite the flabby tax bill that the House put out. Still has to go through the Senate, and I hope they realize they've got to juice this thing up with more incentive for people to get ahead.
On the Live with Steve Forbes, your reaction now to that big announcement that was hammered out over the weekend, the U.S.-China trade deal, which for the moment is in place for the next 90 days anyway. What do you think is going to happen after 90 days, and what's your reaction to what's been agreed to so far?
Well, I think it's a good thing that, in effect, what happened over the weekend, led by Treasury Secretary Bessent, is that you might call it status quo ante. We're sort of back where we were a month or two ago, but we do have a period of pause, that 90 days that you mentioned, where we can start to negotiate, hammer out a real deal that has permanence. One of the things that's hurting business investment in the future is that the on-again, off-again tariffs, things people don't know what the future is. We need firm rules of the road, and hopefully with China, which is a big trading partner, we can get that done in the next 90 days, where we get to the nitty-gritty. What they just did this weekend was to remove the worst of those tariffs, so we don't have a disaster in the economy where we were headed. And now we've got to hammer out a deal. And fortunately, Treasury Secretary Bessent seems to have the capability of handling that kind of detail. So that's why the markets are much more sanguine than they were just 72 or 96 hours ago.
Right, and things are moving at lightning fast speed, one big story after another. And, of course, the China trade deal came after the UK-U.S. Trade deal. Anything that caught your attention there? And looks like we're going to be going right down the line here with all this.
Yes, that was a pretty good deal. But also, though, it shows how difficult these things are in the sense that they lowered the tariff on British automobiles from 25% to 10%. While leaving the tariff on imports from Canada at a much higher level, even though cars that come in from Canada have a substantial number of U.S. parts in it. So the British cars have very few U.S. parts, American-made parts. The Canadian ones have a lot, but the Canadians are getting more punished than the Brits are. So this is a complicated thing, and that's why I'm glad they had the 90-day period with China. We can start to take a more measured approach and avoid these kinds of things in the future of unintended consequences, which usually end up hurting both parties.
On the Air Live with Steve Forbes. Fast forward to today, where President Trump delivered an important speech in Saudi Arabia and laid it on thick on Iran. What was your reaction to that speech today there?
Well, it was a very forceful speech, powerful speech, and in its own way, a very optimistic speech. In the sense he's trying to paint a better future for the Middle East, which has never lived up to its potential. And he, in effect, said, we'll work with you to create real wealth in the future. We'll work against the bad guys. His very emphatic announcement again today, repeating what he has said before, that Iran's not going to be allowed to get the nuclear weapon, because there's been very real concern that we're now negotiating with the Iranians, and we may fall into the trap of keeping their nuclear program alive. The Iranians know, the blunt truth is the Iranians are not, this current government will not give up their nuclear program. They see it as an insurance policy. They saw what happened to the Libyan government when it gave up its nuclear program the way the U.S. wants Iran to do back in 20 years ago. They saw what happened to Ukraine, which gave up its nuclear weapons that it inherited from the Soviet Union when that cracked up. So Iran is determined to keep it. So they're going to use every stratagem, every delaying tactic, promises they won't keep. And so I think it's just a matter of time before we have to face the prospect of giving the green light to the Israelis to attack those nuclear facilities. And that's something I think that is going to be a real issue in the next few months, because these negotiations are not going to work. Iran is determined to become a nuclear-armed power.
All right. President Trump also ordering an end to sanctions on Syria. We really haven't heard too much about what's happening in Syria following the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government. What's your reaction to that part of his announcements today?
Well, Syria, unfortunately, is a very fractured country. Its previous government, headed by a bloodthirsty Assad, and before him his father, also a mass murderer, comes from a very small group inside Syria, about 8% of the population. So it's a country that is a country in name only. The current government head is not somebody you would invite to your daughter's coming out party. He's had a pretty bad track record, but hopefully he can rise to the occasion. So I think what the president wanted to do was to give the place a chance to start to pull itself together. It's being pulled apart by the Iranians. The Turks have an interest there. Other countries have an interest there. Russia has a very big interest there, especially the ports, even though the Syrians have made clear they want the Russians entirely out. So it's still a big mess, but the president, I think, was right to say, okay, let's try to let this country have a chance to get together and stop this ongoing bloodshed.
Speaking of Russia, it looks like there could be some talks this week with the head of Ukraine, possibly involving President Trump. President indicated perhaps on Thursday some meeting could happen in Istanbul. What's the latest on that, and your reaction to how soon we might see an end to the fighting there?
Well, I don't think we'll see an end to the fighting soon. In reality, whatever they may say on Thursday, I know the president's determined to try to bring the two sides together. And I think he's been a little chagrined at how Putin has been trying to play him, as Putin has played previous presidents. And Putin knows how to say soothing things, make soothing promises, and then not deliver. So I hope the president makes it very clear to Putin that unless he really pulls back on this war, wants a real agreement where Ukraine can retain its independence, its sovereignty, its democracy, otherwise we're going to start to rearm the Ukrainians in a very big way, so that Putin won't have an easy victory on the battlefield, as he now thinks he may have. Not an easy one, but where he thinks he can whittle away more and more Ukrainian territory, and therefore get a better settlement when finally it comes. So, and there's even a question. I think one of the reasons why the president indicated he might go to Istanbul is that Putin started making noises that he might not show up for this conference that he agreed to on Thursday. If Trump is going to be there, Putin's going to have to be there. And hopefully the president is on to Putin's machinations. He is not sense like Xi Jinping and like the Iranian mullahs. They're very good at playing U.S. presidents, making promises they don't keep. So we're going to have to play a very hard hand. And the only thing Putin respects is power. And if Trump makes it clear we're going to help out the Iranians, not just with sanctions against Russia, which end up not having the impact that we had hoped, but start to deliver many more weapon systems in quantities that will make a difference on the battlefield, then and only then will Putin sit down and cut a real deal.
And certainly that rare earths metals deal that the president agreed to with the head of Ukraine, that certainly was big news. It seems like it was so much has happened since then, but it was just, about a week or two ago. How do you think that is going to play out? And we've seen a pretty harsh reaction to that from Russia as well.
Well, Russia, the last thing Russia wants is the presence of the U.S., even if it's non-military, not to mention the presence of European troops as a tripwire, as a way to preserve Ukraine's independence. And having U.S. Facilities there where we have a direct interest in that country maintaining its independence is the last thing the Kremlin wants. So I think that's why Putin's been playing his games of not following through on a 30-day ceasefire, which was about 2 months ago. Ukraine agreed to it immediately. Putin has been dragging his feet on it. But Putin's got to realize, I hope the president makes it clear to him, Ukraine is going to have what it needs to maintain its independence. And it's not going to become part of Putin's grand dream, nightmare to the rest of us, of a new Russian empire.
Elon Musk at the top of the Forbes magazine real-time billionaires list. It looks like he had a good day today, up about $9 billion to $415.7 billion. We've seen Tesla stock take off since that big earnings call, which he announced he's going to be stepping away from the government soon and spending more time at Tesla. What's your reaction to his latest announcements and what's been going on with Tesla and Elon Musk?
Well, in terms of he and the Muscovites, what they're doing, it's just beginning. And the key thing is building on what they've started in finding out where the money actually goes in this government and reducing the unnecessary powers the government has acquired, forcing people to buy EVs even if they don't want them, crazy things like that, dishwashers that don't work. And so hopefully he's put in a team that can carry on that work, and hopefully the president will insist on his cabinet members following through on the work that they've started. As for Tesla, one reason why the stock does well, even though if you analyze it by the textbooks, it is way overvalued. Tesla's been overvalued since the beginning, but people see that Musk has a great capacity for going beyond, and they think he's going to go beyond just making automobiles and is going to make real breakthroughs in batteries and other things in terms of high tech. So Tesla's not just an auto company, it's going to be AI and a lot of other things, driverless cars and other things that we don't even really know about today. So the reason the price of the stock is what it is, because of the fertile mind of Musk and his ability to make things happen. The only reason we're ahead of the rest of the world in rocketry is not because of NASA, but because of what the private sector, most notably Elon Musk, has done with his X rockets.
Absolutely amazing. On the air live with Steve Forbes, and certainly Tesla stock has taken off. And President Trump was less than a week ago flat out said, buy stocks now. You better go out and buy stock now. Have you ever heard a president say that? President Trump has given a buy signal here.
Not since the 1920s. And but I think what the president's trying to get across is, even though we're going to have some turbulent times in the economy, you don't recover from all of this tariff turmoil and what it's done to supply chains overnight.
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business.
Let's get inside of Jack Osbourne.
Bands would say Black Sabbath was a huge influence.
And thank God you liked it, boy.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Peter gets on the phone. Elijah, would you like to play the role of Frodo?
Did you cry?
Probably screamed at the top of my lungs.
You play iconic characters, Black Canary and Black Siren. Who would you choose?
Probably Black Siren. She's like, I got this. And that's how Katie Cassidy feels. She's got this.
I like that.
The Inside of You podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
But the key thing is, if they get a good tax bill through, get these deals done, and so with our big trading partners, key trading partners, including countries like Vietnam, settled, then hopefully we can know what the rules of the road are and can move forward. The market, as you know, always tries to anticipate the future. What's happened in the past doesn't matter to them. What they want to know is what's ahead.
Among the movers and shakers you talked to, what is the mood there now following this tariff storm we've been through and now this impressive market rebound?
A lot of business leaders were very, very upset and concerned. They felt that there wasn't a real strategic plan in what the president had done with tariffs, that a lot of it was sort of off the cuff. And fortunately, he has a team like people like Scott Bessent at the Treasury who persuaded him, for example, to do the first 90-day pause after Liberation Day on April 2nd, which abruptly and dramatically turned around the market, which was in a free fall. Then it had its best day ever following the announcement of a 90-day pause. So business leaders are hoping that all of this is going to sort itself out soon, and the sooner the better, because while we focus on big companies, because that's the ones who sell stock, trade stock, it's tens of thousands of small businesses face obliteration with those Chinese tariffs. And a lot of them are still going to go under because a 30% tariff is not the chopped liver in terms of businesses with small margins. So the quicker we get all of this settled and hopefully knock those rates down, the better for the economy. Because what's amazing, Frank, is despite all the abuses we've heaped on the American economy, its basic strength is there. And any time you see anything removing barriers, people are out there ready to move ahead. And big things are coming in healthcare, like vaccines for cancer and the like, that won't happen if you don't have a good environment. And that's what we have to get now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the call. Wish we had more time, but we'll have to stop there. Look forward to our next conversation. Steve Forbes, giant on the business scene, the one and only Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, which, of course, includes Forbes magazine, author of numerous books, including the book Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
It's been a pleasure and honor, Frank. Thank you. Look forward
Likewise.
to being with you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And let's get right out to the freeways now here on 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here. Want to take a moment to talk about owing taxes and my trusted friends, Ultimate Tax Group. Now, if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, the IRS offers Fresh Start programs. Now, seize this rare chance now and call Ultimate Tax Group, 888-711-4850, and see why they're different than other firms. They'll actually call the IRS with you on the phone to gather your current account information, but also will go above and beyond and request the IRS to grant you immediate protection from collections actions like bank levies and wage garnishments. Other companies charge $500 to $1,000 for the service, but Ultimate Tax Group won't. A-plus rated 5-star service with direct access to ownership and upper management. While they work on your case, just tell them Mottek sent you. Call Ultimate Tax Group now. They are the best. 888-711-4850. Again, that's 888-711-4850. They care and fight for their clients. Mottek On Money continues. 790 KABC. Mixed finish for stocks today following that big rally yesterday in which the Dow gained nearly 1,200 points. Today it pulled back nearly 300 to 42,140. The S&P 500 gained 42 at 5,887. The NASDAQ popped 302 points at 19,010. Among the winners, Tesla today up nearly $16 at $334 and change. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.47%. That's the one that impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates. Been moving up lately. Bitcoin in rally mode this week, pulling back a bit now, down about 800, back to 104,000 or so. And Ethereum has seen quite a run, right now at $2,669. Doge at the moment has popped to 24 cents, and Solana at 183 and change. And now the latest news in 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues. 790 KABC. Home price availability and affordability. Affordability and availability, of course, big issues for home buyers here in Southern California, especially coming off the firestorms of this year. Home price growth slowed in March as consumer anxiety over personal finances, job stability, and trade-related tariffs continued to weigh on the spring housing market. According to the latest reports we're getting from the real estate analytics firm Cotality, formerly known as CoreLogic, it looks like nationwide annual home price growth did decline to 2.5% in March, down from nearly 3% in February. Let's get an update now from the source. Joining us live now is Dr. SELMA HEPP, Chief Economist at Cotality, formerly known as CoreLogic. SELMA HEPP, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Hi, Frank. Thanks so much for having me again.
Wonderful to have you with us. Take it from the top and give us the latest readings on home prices here in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, so let's start with the spring home buying season, which has been actually a mixed bag. In some ways, we have had a little bit more activity in LA, say, compared to the rest of the nation, and I think that's the reason being is the fires and the need for shelter for those that lost their homes. So home sales were a little bit stronger in LA this spring than other parts of the country. But as you said, overall, what we are seeing is slowing of home price appreciation. And one big reason for that, at least in LA, is that we also do have a lot of inventory, at least compared to last year. Last year we were on the bottom of inventory, actually super low inventories that we haven't ever seen in sort of recent data history for this region. And so the fact that we have now more inventory bodes well for the potential home buyers because they have now an upper hand and they can negotiate discounts. And so that's leading to slower rate of home price appreciation. But nevertheless, because again, what happened due to the wildfires, home price rate of appreciation is a little bit stronger in LA than in some other parts of the country. Again, people are having, in a need position, so they have to buy a home, and so that's putting pressure on home prices. The other reason is that we did see a little bit more higher end sales because where the wildfires happen and the type of consumer that's buying these higher price homes. So that's helped push home prices up as well. But, overall, again, I think what we're seeing now is some level of normalization in LA, some level of returning to pre-pandemic trends where you don't see so much bidding activity, so not as many offers on those homes that are available for sale, and that's bringing better negotiation between, more balanced negotiation between buyers and sellers.
What are you seeing specifically in the Palisades and in the Altadena areas that were hit by the firestorms and so many neighborhoods and businesses completely wiped out? We're seeing various reports about lots being sold, people throwing in the towel there, but certainly the prices are still very high. Anything, at least anecdotally, that you can tell us about what's happening in those areas?
Yeah, so same here. We are anecdotally hearing about lots being sold and at pretty good prices, and these are desirable areas, particularly Palisades and Brentwood. So prices are not an issue. It's more about rebuilding. It's more about really that people are sort of reluctant to figure out their next steps. Also, a lot more inventory of those homes that survived, maybe a function of people worrying about their insurance costs going forward and just, maybe they are ready to go settle elsewhere. So it has driven inventory up in general in LA as a result of the wildfires.
All right, and so what's the latest reading on home prices in the Los Angeles area? And looks like they're up again, right, month to month and year over year. And I know you also track San Diego as well as San Francisco. If you could take a look at your latest readings and share those with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So LA is up about 3% on a year-over-year basis. 2.8% to be exact. A little bit less appreciation down in San Diego. San Diego did have a lot more appreciation over the course of last year, so we're seeing some leveling off in San Diego. Where, in contrast, Oakland area of the Bay region is seeing a lot more appreciation at some 4%. And then really the strongest one is Orange County. Orange County is at 6% annual appreciation. There's a lot of homes there that were bought now as a result of the wildfires that are more expensive homes. A lot more demand went into that direction, so that's why a lot more appreciation there. But overall, when we look at the region, California in general, going forward into 2026, we think home price appreciation is going to remain strong. Our forecast is actually 7 to 8% appreciation over the course of next year. So, we're in some sense on the bottom of this slowing of rate price appreciation, and that's going to pick up later in the year again.
All right, and what's the outlook on where mortgage rates go from here?
Oh, that's the tricky part. Mortgage one day they're up, one day they're down. In March, mortgage rates came down from January peaks, and they actually stabilized at pretty low levels relatively to where we've been recently. And that actually did help push home sales activity in March. So that's why we saw a pickup in. That was the only part of the spring home buying season that there was some boost in home buying demand. And then, again, after the Liberation Day and mortgage rates surging back up to over 7%, we see stalling in that home buying demand again. So a lot of volatility to be continued with the mortgage rates, and we do still anticipate them to remain in that 6.5% to 7% through remainder of this year.
All right. Where are the bargains now? I don't see too many here, but nationwide, as you look around, any prices easing any place?
Yeah, so, they are easing in some markets. The question is, do you really want to go to those markets? Because there's reasons why they're easing, but definitely a lot slower rate of home price growth or price declines in Florida and Texas. Those are two markets that definitely dominate the list in terms of home price declines because insurance has gone up so much, and also they have different property tax structures where in Texas, property taxes went up a lot over the course of last a few years.
That's very interesting. Yeah, in Florida, the insurance as well as homeowner association dues with ever since they had the collapse of that condo there in the South Florida area, that has changed the equation there. So they've seen eye-popping increases in homeowner association dues. Are you seeing that elsewhere as well?
It's mostly in Florida. Definitely, there's a divergence between price appreciation of condominiums versus attached homes. That's a single family freestanding home. So less demand for condos, more concern, especially older condos. As you mentioned, a huge issue with HOA in Florida, where actually one of the most inventory built up that we've had over the course of last year has been that condo market in Florida for older condos. The other issue in Florida is, a lot of their demand depends on Canadians coming in and buying second homes and other international buyers, and that has slowed down as well. So they don't have as much demand, and they have a lot of supply, and that's contributing to those price declines.
Dr. SELMA HEPP, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. I look forward to your next update. That is Dr. SELMA HEPP, the chief economist at Cotality, formerly known as CoreLogic. Thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Frank. Always nice to talk to you.
Likewise. Looking forward to seeing you again soon, too. And thank you very much. Right out to the freeways we go here now on 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here. Want to take a moment to talk about owing taxes and my trusted friends Ultimate Tax Group. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, the IRS offers Fresh Start programs. Now seize this rare chance now and call Ultimate Tax Group. The number is 888-711-4850 and see why they're different than other firms. They'll actually call the IRS with you on the phone to gather your current account information, but also will go above and beyond that and request the IRS grant you immediate protection from collections actions like bank levies and wage garnishments. Other companies charge $500 to $1,000 for that service, but Ultimate Tax Group won't. A-plus rated 5-star service with direct access to ownership and upper management while they work on your case. Just tell them Mottek sent you. Call Ultimate Tax Group now. They are the best. Call 888-711-4850. Again, that's 888-711-4850. They care and fight for their clients. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Big news for West Los Angeles. President Trump has ordered the Veterans Administration to build 6,000 homes for veterans in West Los Angeles on the VA's nearly 400-acre campus. Let's get the latest on that and what's happening on the commercial real estate scene now. And joining us live is Jerry Sullivan, National Managing Editor of The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site, which covers the Los Angeles area. Jerry Sullivan, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
It's my pleasure as always, Frank.
Wonderful to have you with us here, Jerry. And, of course, you're a veteran of Southern California business scene and real estate scene. So give us an update on what we need to know about this this big news, what's going to happen there at the VA complex in West Los Angeles.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Carania.
It is Haley Carania. I'm excited to be here because there's a lot to scroll through on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Truth Social. Love seeing you all in the chat before the show. I tried to jump in just a few minutes before to say hello. I love the chat interaction. Thank you for helping. Love all my homies that I get to scroll with. If you want to listen, Nightly Scroll with Haley is where you can find me. Just search that up and I will be there. We've got to spread the word far and wide.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Carania. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
And I think this has been a long time in coming. I believe Judge Carter, the federal judge, who's been overseeing a dispute having to do with the VA campus. And this is the one that's over in Westwood. Huge piece of land in a very desirable area of the city. And it was given to the soldiers of America 150 years ago or so. And so it has existed for that purpose since then, but has been used differently over the years. And that became part of this dispute. They were leasing parts of the campus for other uses. The Brentwood School, UCLA's baseball stadium was actually on this property. And it turns out that was expressly forbidden by the rules and regulations behind this property. And so all this came to a case before a federal judge who ordered development of housing there to serve veterans, which was, of course, the intended purpose. And that's still in the courts being worked out. In the meantime, the order from the Trump administration came down. And so I think, we'll begin. It dovetails with I think, what was going on anyway. And I'm guessing we'll ramp it up, speed it up, and probably put a renewed emphasis behind it.
On there live with Jerry Sullivan at The Real Deal. And you might have seen during the pandemic along San Vicente Boulevard there and Wilshire Boulevard, there were homeless encampments all along that stretch heading into Brentwood. And then former Governor Schwarzenegger and others contributed funds to build those mini homes. You see those mini homes on part of that VA campus now where some of those homeless veterans were moved into these very small homes. So that is part of the setup there now. Any other insights on what we might see on that property? Actual homes or apartments, or what do you see happening?
Yeah, I'm guessing that I think the latest plan calls for 6,000 units. So I'm guessing that will be apartment complexes of sort of multifamily setup. Understand there's a lot of vacant existing buildings on that site. Again, it's an enormous site. There's no shortage of land, and there's no shortage of veterans in need. So it's been a bit of a head scratcher why this hasn't happened earlier. And I can tell you that there's some very active or several very active groups of veterans who have been pushing for this, and have been very fearful that this land was somehow going to be taken away from them or sold off, or and those leases were they always cited as the sort of the preliminary indicator of that, right? Again, it's an enormously attractive piece of land in a great location. So I think it'll be the veterans will consider this a great win to get something built, because we all know once you put something on the land, it certainly enhances your ownership or your claim. And so I would imagine we're going to see a lot of multifamily type development for veterans with various disabilities or otherwise.
On there live with Jerry Sullivan at The Real Deal. We had Rick Caruso on this program less than a week ago, who spoke about the Steadfast LA initiative, the recovery effort for the Palisades, as well as Altadena, and there are other efforts underway as well. Can you give us an update on how you see the recovery going of all of the devastated homes and businesses in those areas?
Well, Frank, I'm going to be very frank, if I may.
Certainly.
I know that the mayor spoke at the Milken conference the other day. I believe you were there, And, kind of went on about this, the progress and that the cleanup of the second phase of the clearance of debris is going at lightning speed. And I'm not sure how many phases there are going to be or what the definition of lightning speed is, but we're about 4 months into this process. There's, I think, been 35 permits issued for the Palisades. I think the mayor mentioned there's 200 in the pipeline. But you're talking about 6,000 homes that were destroyed in this fire. So lightning speed, I think what you're seeing now is, I guess if we all let the city of LA set the standard, then we'll say, okay, oh, gee, you're doing a great job. To me, 4 months into this and 35 permits with 6,000 homes gone, not real impressive.
Speaks for itself, and you can always be frank with me here, Jerry, and you do a terrific job with all this coverage. Thank you very much for joining us. Wish we had more time here. We'll have to stop there. Look forward to your next update. That is Jerry Sullivan, National Managing Editor at The Real Deal, the authoritative commercial real estate news site, which covers the Los Angeles area. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz. I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon here on Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
The Bigger Pockets Podcast Network is your home for real estate investing.
So why real estate?
We keep saying it, but the housing market is shifting more and more towards a buyer's market every week.
Guess what, folks? You can still buy real estate today.
You can buy a quality rental property today.
And build an investment portfolio that cash flows monthly.
These are my favorite markets for cash flow.
And build wealth long term.
The world has changed, but the best way to invest in real estate hasn't.
Search for the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Show anywhere you listen to your podcasts.